morning, good morning, good morning. It is August 1st. Wow. So tonight I will be in Mansfield, Ohio. So everybody that's in the area or that is planning on going, at the City Center building at 20 North Main Street in Mansfield at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. There will be a presentation. The preparation of it will be a seminar. It's called Unmasking the Masquerade. It'll be held to further equip those persons who were either involved in this event last year or those who are interested in considering being involved in it this year. It's in ministry to the participants, of course, of this event, to all the LGBTP QRSTUV plus whatever infinity that are going to attend. Also, Friday the 3rd, there will be a prayer walk that starts at 7 p.m. And if you're interested in the prayer walk, then just meet them at Mansfield Central Park downtown. And then Saturday, of course, is the parade itself, and we will also be there. I've been talking about that I'm going to Texas this weekend for the Salt and Light Brigade Texas, but the Lord has placed it on my heart that I need to be at the Mansfield homosexual parade Saturday, because it's in my backyard and because it's where I live at and because I need to be there. And so I'll be there this Saturday and not in Texas. So for all that I had planned and, all the people that I had planned on seeing and fellowshipping with, I'll see you in September, Lord willing. With that said, I want to go into an article. This article, Diamond Stevens, 39, is the 16th trans person reported murdered in 2018. So, Jared, can we go to that article? Now, this is from, of course, a homosexual source, newspaper, online, whatever it is. Diamond Stevens was 39 years old when he was shot in the back of the head while driving in Meridian, Mississippi. That was on June 18, 2018. Misgendering and dead naming kept the community unaware of his death until friends and family set the record straight a month later. Now, we're going to look at the definitions in a moment for those two, misgendering and dead naming. Ridiculous. Monica Roberts at Trans G Riot or Trans Griot corrected the original reporting by WTOK TV's Carly Blake. Stevens was found dead from a gunshot wound in the back of the head, according to Lauderdale County Coroner Clayton Cobbler III. Anyway, I want to go down a little bit where it says, we are hurting really bad. Now, see, this is what I want to talk about because, see, I don't think believe me, I've lost people that I knew to this type of activity. Okay, now let me just give you a quick little scenario. I was on the corner working one night, working the street. We all know what that means. And another transgender named Dana got out of a car that had two men in it and came up to me and said, come on, come turn this trick with me. They don't know the T, which meant they didn't know that he was a he. They didn't know that I was a he, but Dana was willing to bring me with him to turn this trick and to turn them out. And I said, no, I'm not with that. I ain't going. So he went. The next morning, I got word that they had found Dana in a hotel room in New Jersey with his head completely crushed by a cinder block. My heart broke for Dana, okay? But let me say this, because this is important that we understand this. Folks, we reap what we sow. We reap what we sow. And if we choose to live in darkness and deception, then whatever more evil comes our way, then it's by our own making. We've chosen it. When I got AIDS, I chose to go out and engage in homosexual activity and be promiscuous. My recompense or my reward for that homosexuality and fornication and promiscuity was AIDS. Okay, along with many other illnesses and ailnesses and many other hardships. You know, I was jumped one time by a group of men, at least 15 men. And this was when I was in my transition, when I was just a very feminine boy, but I kind of looked like a girl, but I was just known in that area as Gay Dave. And Dave wasn't very gay at that time, but I have to say that. So one night I got off the subway and I was walking home, and a group of guys came out of nowhere and they stomped a mud hole in me. Okay. They mollywopped me like I'd never, ever experienced. But I chose that. I chose to be what I was portraying myself to be. I chose to be out partying, engaging in sexual activity in Center City, and I chose to be riding the subway looking for sex, and then I chose to be walking home in the middle of the night because of all of my deviant activities that I chose to do. So we reap what we sow. So this transgenders, this young man that was shot in the back of his head, his cousin says, "We are hurting really bad." I don't really know what words to say other than we need God to help us and give us strength to make it through this situation, and pray to God that whoever did this is found. Well, you see, beloved, when I came out of the world and when I was transformed, I ran into some Christians who said, "Oh, God never heard you. God didn't know you. He didn't hear your prayers." Well, see, I know that that's not true, because I know that God had his thumb on me in many situations where I myself should have lost my life. However, I believe that if I would have been praying, "Oh Lord, can you heal my swollen ankle because I've chosen to wear these 5-inch stiletto heels and now my ankle's swollen. Can you heal my ankle?" No, God don't hear that, because I was separated from him. But if I called out on him like I did when I was on my deathbed, he'd hear that, because I'm calling out to him, because he knows my heart. And so my heart was dark, and if I had prayed to him, then no, you know, I'm not going to pray that whoever murdered this young man, please let that person be found, when I myself am separated from God. How do I know that this transgender, this homosexual's cousin is not found and is lost? Because he believes that his cousin, or she believes that her cousin was a girl when her cousin was a boy. So, and if you accept it, you're just as guilty as if you're doing it. And Jared, if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see comments, and there's only 3 or 4, but I posted right there, I posted several comments yesterday, and even replies to other comments, and they were all removed immediately by the website itself. So now we're going to just go over to misgendering. And see, this right here, I'm bringing this out and I'm talking about this because people, we reap what we sow. If we reap evil, we sow evil. If we live in darkness, we have nothing but darkness I, I have to make people understand that while I think that it is a tragedy that somebody would take somebody's life and actually ultimately take away the chance of of this young man being rescued by Jesus, but this young man chose to live in this darkness. And that's why the enemy has all these, is after these young people, is after the youth. He wants to fool them. He wants to trick them. He wants to have them thinking that this is who they are, what they are, that God made them this way. Because if he can have their minds, and then they die in their sin, just like this, or in any way, but this is a prime example, and then they die in their sin, he has them for eternity. They are eternally his. And so I want to look at this misgender. Okay, I can guarantee you misgender is not in the 1828 dictionary. Okay, because it's a made-up word. But refer to someone, especially a transgender person, using a word, especially a pronoun or form of address that does not correctly reflect the gender with which they identify. Folks, you're either male or female. And it doesn't matter if you try to make your outie an innie or your innie an outie. You are still the gender that God created you, that you were born. And there is no way around that. You can go get breasts and have silicone put in your face and take hormones and puberty blockers and all this other stuff. But listen to me. You are still the gender that you were created to be. Okay? Nobody chooses their gender. Exactly, Brother David. DNA proves it. There's only male or female. See, God and science agree on that. Because all this other made up stuff, it's not scientific. It's not science. And so now I want to go to dead naming. What is this? For many, though not all, people who are transgender, undergoing a name change can be an affirming step in the transition process. It can help a person who's transgender and the people in their lives begin to see them as the gender they know themselves to be. It can also alleviate discomfort that may be associated with one's old name. Unfortunately, many people struggle to adhere to a trans person's new affirmed name. In some situations, I can't help but to just think on and thank the correctional officer who said to me, "What's your name?" And I said, "Paige." He said, "No, that's a girl's name. What's the name your mama gave you?" I said, "David." He said, "Well, David, guess what? God didn't create you to be this way. So guess what, David?" That's why when I speak to transgenders, I'm not calling them. When I met the one in Philadelphia, I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Melanie." I said, "Well, I ain't calling you that. Can I call you Mel?" And he said, "Yeah." So I called him Mel. And the one I met on the streets in Atlantic City, his name was Angel. And I know quite a few men named Angel, so I kind of went with that. And I know that wasn't his birth name. And if I asked him for his birth name, he would actually, it would have put up a kind of a barrier between us. Because of the atmosphere and the situation that we were in, if that correctional officer had saw me on a corner and said, "Well, what's your name?" and I said, "Paige," he said, "What's the name your mama gave you?" I told him none of his business. But because of the atmosphere and where we were at in our situation, I told him, because I just wanted to, keep the peace, and because that was my name that my mama gave me. And he could have looked on my ID and saw the same name. So, and I say all that to say this, that all this regendering and dead naming And oh, we have to have compassion because these trans people, they're being killed, or they're committing suicide, or these LGBT youth, they're all committing suicide. They're scared to death that they can't cope and they can't deal. They're not being accepted. Well, let me say this: the suicide rate does not change even after they're accepted. And the suicide rate even increases after they actually get on hormones and get all more confused and more out of whack. And after they have the operation, they're ready to end their lives. And I know this because I know plenty of them. And when I was months away from getting castrated, it was 2 transgenders that had the operation that said to me, "Don't do it." And the one looked at me and said, "Don't do it." All my life, I thought that if I could just become a woman, that I would find peace and be happy. And he said, now that I am legally and medically a woman, I'm more miserable than I'd ever been. The other one said he thinks about taking his life every day. I can't even imagine. Now, I know what it's like to want to take your life. Sadly, I know what it's like to attempt to take your life. But I also know that when somebody attempts to take their life, it's a cry for help because they don't really want to take their life. Because somebody who really wants to take their life, they go out and they take their life. So I know that an attempted suicide in the majority of cases is a cry for help. Okay? These LGBT youth, you want to talk about suicide amongst the LGBT youth? Compare it to suicide rate of Christian youth. No comparison. No comparison. Because while, yeah, there may be some youth who have taken or attempted to take their lives, and they do identify as Christian. Why are they attempting it? They're attempting it because of the confusion of their own sexuality, because the world is telling them that they're born that way, that they're created that way. And their families, their Christian families, are standing firm in the word, and they're saying, no, you're not created this way. You have to deny this. If you go into this death style, it will take your life. Look at this young man, Diamond Stevens. I wish I knew his real name, because I definitely don't like calling him Diamond. But look at this young man. He went with how he felt and what he thought. And he ended up with a bullet in the back of his head because he chose to be what he wanted to be, not what he was created to be. You see, beloved, God makes no mistakes. God doesn't make any mistakes, nor does he make any junk. And so if he creates you male, he has a purpose for your life. I know this because I look back now and I see that, you see how scripture tells us God knows the plans that he has for us. I believe that even the enemy knows the plans that God has for us. Because I was under attack while I was still in the womb. If my mother could have been convinced to have an abortion, maybe she would have. But see, I was under attack while I was in the womb, because while I'm in the womb, the enemy knew the plans he had for me, because my father took his life. And so that started the process of me seeking and searching out male affirmation and confirmation. That started the process for me to be sucked into and lured into and seduced into that darkness. And it started the process for me to be recruited, what we call molested, into that movement. Because it's not a community, folks. It's a movement. And you know how I know it's a movement? Because they have an agenda. They have an agenda. they have the homosexual manifesto that starts out with the very first line in the homosexual manifesto is, "We shall sodomize your sons," emblems of your feeble masculinity. See, they're sodomizing your sons, and they're emasculating all of the men, even in your churches. They're all being emasculated, and how are they doing so? They're becoming parts of this culture. You know, I'm going to share this. I'm going to have a show. I'm going to do a show really soon. I'm going to have this discussion because I'm going to reach out to all of the youth and the young adults in the church. Because, you see, I've always had an issue with these men and these young boys running around in skinny jeans. And a lot of you are going to get offended at this, but when I was at OSA, if I didn't have any struggles, I had them at OSA. Why? Because every single one of these young men were running around with skin-tight pants on. And so for those who are struggling or may be prone to those temptations, you're being a stumbling block. When I spoke to a homosexual in the streets in Indianapolis, he said to me, "David, they don't understand how hard it is. They don't understand what we deal with. They don't understand the temptation. They don't understand how hard it is for me to resist this temptation." And know what he said to me? He said, "And they make it even worse because they're all running around in these skin-tight pants and joggers and skinny jeans, which are really just tights and leotards. But they're running around in these skin-tight pants." And he said, "And I can see everything that they have, and it's a stumbling block. And I don't want to deal with this." And I couldn't tell him, "Go to church," because it's in the church. I was going cuckoo crazy the night before because I watched these young boys and these young men on the stage with these skin-tight pants on, prancing around. And I'm telling you, I know you're going to get offended, and I don't really care, because you're being a stumbling block just as much as these young women are being a stumbling block with these low-cut shirts and these shorts all the way up there. You know what's and these skin-tight clothing. You know, back in my day, when a girl wore skin-tight pants, everyone kind of assumed she was kind of loose. So now, not only are the girls doing it, but the boys are doing it. So now you have pornography is at its highest. It's at its highest than it's ever been. So you have so many people that are struggling and battling and trying to get off of it. So let me ask you this. If an alcoholic comes into your church, are you going to have communion and give him a glass of wine? No, because that would be a stumbling block. If a drug addict comes into your church, are you going to say, "Well, here, if you're in pain, try this, smoke this joint. Let's go smoke a blunt, bro"? No, because that would be a stumbling block. When I know that somebody I cook with wine, okay? And when I know that somebody has a problem, I don't sit my cooking wine out on the counter and invite them over my house for lunch. I drink a glass of wine every now and then, red wine. Why? Because it's good for you, okay? And that's why I do it. And I don't really need excuses to do it, but I'm telling you. So I wouldn't go out to dinner with somebody I knew was struggling with alcohol and order a glass of wine. I just wouldn't do it. So why, when you know that there are men and women out there struggling, because women struggle with this too, why, when you know they're out there struggling, why would you want to wear any clothing that is form-fitting to your body? You know what? It kind of takes me to the place that if you want to, if your body is being framed by your clothing, then you are a far cry from the very righteousness of which you've been called. Because if you can picture Jesus prancing down the street with skinny jeans on or a blue streak in his hair, then you don't know Jesus. And I'm telling you that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to let you know that you are being a stumbling block. And if you have a heart, I've seen some of these young men at OSA, and I know they love the Lord. I know that they love Jesus. I know it. I see it in them. I felt it. I spoke to them. I just knew it. I saw Jesus. But I saw that these young men don't have a clue, and they are trapped in the culture and the demands of the culture. And they say, ain't nobody gonna tell me I can't wear what I want to wear. I'm gonna wear what I want to wear. Well, you go ahead and do what you want to do. But for every man or woman that one of you causes to stumble, you will be held accountable. And you know, we've been going over the once saved, always saved, how it's a damnable doctrine. And so if you don't endure to the end, you will most certainly be separated. Sheeps, goats. What side you gonna be on? Where you gonna be at? And I'm telling you this because this is something that has been on my heart for a long time. But I've never really thought about how to bring it, because I always just wanted to say, look, if you want to prance around looking like a little girl, like a sissy, that's on you. But you know, I realize that makes somebody put up a wall, like, you know, yeah, who cares, you know? But what it comes down to is vanity and being a victim of this culture. Okay, and we're not called to fit in, we're called to stand apart. And when you know, I've been in some fellowships, some church meetings, and I've seen every single young man in there have on either slacks or baggy jeans. Not baggy where they're hanging off your backside and I can see your underwear, because that's just as much of an eyesore as it is to see you in skin tight pants. But I had to move. I'm telling you this, and I'm going to be honest. I was standing behind a few young men at OSA, and I had to move. I had to move because they were jumping up and down and falling down. And while it was amazing that they were worshiping God, they were being a stumbling block. And so if you've got to squeeze into your jeans, you're being a stumbling block. And that goes for boys, girls, men, and women. If you have to go like this to hold your shirt up when you bend down, you're being a stumbling block. And you know what you're doing. Most of the time, you know what you're doing. And if you see this and you continue to do it, I'm going to have to question whether or not Jesus resides in you. And I don't have no problem with telling you that. Y'all have a blessed day. I love you all. Peace.